And then when you get out of that victim mindset, then you can really be a little bit more objective about things and really feel empowered and know that you can change anything. I thought it was wild. It was like you feel like this really powerful sorceress almost.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then you notice the things around you start to change. You notice your relationships start to change. You notice the people that are close to you in your life, they start to change. And it's all just in response to your completely healed energy. Mm-hmm. It's wild.
Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean, and today we have a wonderful guest with us, Michelle Muench, also known as Banana Blondie Yoga on Instagram. And so I'm super excited, and we are blessed to be at her beautiful place here in Malibu, California on location. So Michelle, welcome.
Super jazzed to be here.
Welcome
Heather.
to your own home.
Welcome to your own home. Yeah.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes. Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
So I love this. I love to be able to sit down. First of all, you're just an amazing, wonderful, beautiful human being that I love to have struck a friendship with.
Oh, back at ya.
Through Mind Change.
Yeah.
But it was not until we were just talking that I realized how you even found Mind Change to begin with. So if you could explain that. Yeah.
Well, I think my first sighting of you and Kent was on Ellen Fisher's podcast, but I didn't watch the whole podcast. I listened in for a few minutes and I was like, who is this tattoo lady and this man bun guy? But I was like, they've been saying some interesting things. And I think maybe something you said or the wording of like the Mind Change, it might have like triggered me a little bit. And I was like, no, and then put it to rest. And then it also came back to me, like back into my life, like it was meant to, when we did the empowered birthing course with Ellen and Hannah, and they asked me to be a part of that. So then I looked into you, read the book, booked sessions with you, and haven't looked back since.
Yes, that was so great. And the funny thing was, I was only remembering this last night that I actually had your yoga course for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, right after Ellen, I think Ellen put me in contact with you or something, and I watched your course for a little bit. It was right after I had changed the way that I was eating and some various things. So I had the same thing, like in the beginning, I was like, I can't be thinking about yoga right now. I've got to think about how to feed myself, in this different way.
Yeah.
So, but here we are.
Here we are.
Again. Yeah. So what brought you were a little bit triggery from what we were saying, which happens. Mm-hmm. It happens. And I've heard that a lot, that people come back to us.
Yeah.
And so something about what we say in the beginning is triggery, and then they come back. But what brought you to feeling like maybe I need to reach out for sessions? That's a big step. So what was that for you?
Well, first of all, I know that like if you do a person that does self-work, you know that if you are triggered, there's something juicy there. And so I did know that underneath. But I think I came to you initially for sessions because, and I wouldn't have described it this way, but I think I was in a pretty deep depression. But I don't remember saying to you, I'm depressed. I think I remember describing it as, I feel so heavy and my heart feels so broken and I just can't move and it's always there on me. And I think I was describing it in all of these kind of somatic ways, which is how I perceived it to be. And, but yeah, in retrospect, realizing that's depression, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember you coming in and being a little bit like, I'm not even sure why I'm here or what I need. Yeah. I don't know how to say what it is. Yeah. But then, of course, as we quickly start asking questions, it all kind of came out.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it's interesting because probably from the outside looking in, you wouldn't have probably said you were depressed. Right. Or if someone would have come like, oh, you're depressed, you probably would have been like, no. And then from the outside looking in, you had maybe what people would say, like all the good things. Like you have this really amazing and great life.
Yeah.
And yet depression.
Yes.
So what was that? What do you feel like that was?
I mean, I think obviously like unresolved, unhealed trauma, all sorts of challenging family relationships, things of that nature. But I was always that person that did all of the things, right? I practiced yoga every day. I ate a perfectly healthy diet. I made sure I spent time outdoors and got my sunshine and in nature and, communed with animals and had, important friendships in my life and did all of the things. Yet it was this sense of like white knuckling through it, like checking these things off the list to make sure that I was okay. And I do think that those things were great and helpful and definitely helped me keep it together and keep me functioning in some way. But there was no sense of ease. It felt like a struggle and a burden, like, I've got to go do that walk outside, or I've got to get my bare feet on the ground. And it was just, there was no joy in it. Yeah.
So doing the things
were helpful, but there was no joy in it. It didn't fix the problem.
Yeah. And again, what would you have said the problem was?
I don't even remember.
Listen, I know this is so hard for people who
I'm trying to, I think it was focused on, I know that it was focused on certain familial relationships that I was really having a challenging time with. And it was very like an external thing where I viewed it as the problem is with this person that's difficult that I have to deal with, and there's no way out. And at the time, I did a lot of seeking and reading all the books and all of the parenting books, and I felt like I responded in the correct ways as a parent and, with other family members, the way that you're supposed to do with patients and everything. But again, there was no ease in it. So I think I was placing the problem externally and not really, it was very disempowering, but I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah, and that takes a toll on your body.
For sure.
That's the
heaviness. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So even though you're doing all the right things, and it's not like you weren't aware of mindset stuff and mindfulness and even trauma.
Yep.
Right? Wouldn't you even say some of your is trauma informed? Some of your yoga work is trauma informed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would absolutely say that.
You were still doing it.
Of course.
Yeah. And I think
I'm doing it. That's that languaging that triggered me in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Good job for all of you who've triggered out there. Yeah. But I think that's, I would love to remove any shame or stigma from that, because I do think there's a lot of people in the healing, helping professions who maybe even have large businesses, large followings, who are doing this and doing all the right things and even helping other people try to do all the right things, and yet maybe carrying an enormous load emotionally that they can't seem to shift.
Exactly. That unhealed healer.
How did that feel for you? Like, were there ever moments of that? Like, I'm doing all these things and I'm doing the right thing? Because I know you were kind of white knuckling it and you had it, but did you ever drop into those moments to be like, how?
No. And that's an interesting question. I always gave myself a lot of credit for trying so hard. Like that was my thing. Like, I know that I'm doing everything I can.
Yeah.
But it just was never quite got me out from under it.
Gosh, I wonder, I think that's a program, right?
Oh, for sure.
As long as I'm doing for everybody
else. That
was
was the thing. I was like, I'm doing everything I can to try to fix everything around me, and then that's all I can do. But I had to do everything I could. I had to open every door, had to, consult with every type of professional, try every kind of therapy, all of that stuff.
And yet you are still battling. You're still the white knuckling. You're still trying to keep it together.
Yes.
So it's almost like it's still that focus on the external to try to get you okay internally.
Yes.
And doing it's so interesting because you were doing so much somatic work.
Yeah.
Right? Really focused on that.
Yep. Very mind-body integrated, very aware of how things affected my body. Even when I'd had physical ailments in the past, I always had an awareness that there was an emotional element to it. And that's what it came from, because I was like, well, I do everything perfectly. I get enough sleep. I eat perfectly. I meditate. I do all things. So it can't be, a physical thing. It has to be emotional. But just knowing that it doesn't really change anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So you reach out, we do sessions. Even so, after the first session, what did you think?
I remember after the first session, I was very tired. That was initially what I was so tired, like couldn't, just had to just do nothing the rest of the day and go to sleep. And then the next day I woke up and felt different. But I remember thinking, I don't know if that did anything. I don't know if that did anything, because I think what we worked on in session was not really what I came in about, but that's what it always is. The problem is never the problem. It's always like something that happened in childhood, probably. But yeah, I think after the second session was when I really noticed there was just a lifting of all of that I had felt before. All of that heaviness was completely gone, and I couldn't even remember what it felt like in my body. And then again, I came back to that, I don't know if it did anything thing, or I probably would have just been okay anyway, or it was just coincidence that it lifted and went away.
Yeah, even though you've been trying for so many years and doing all the right things.
I know.
That's really common in this work. People come in, something really profound changes, and then they're like, oh, it wasn't actually that big of a deal.
It wasn't that big of a deal, because you can't remember what it was like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kept you around then?
Well, I don't know. I just decided to do the module 2 or module 1 because I did notice a difference. I was like, well, I'm happy now, and I'm really curious about this. And I also found the work very fascinating. Like, I found your book incredibly interesting, and I love learning about neuroscience. I love the mind-body connection. I love the somatics. I love how you use all of the representational systems. And I just found it really fascinating. So I wanted to know more. And but at that point, when I started doing module 1, it was still, oh, well, let me do this so I can learn this so that I can help other people, or like help my kids, or so that I can be a better mom for my kids. It was always externally focused. It took me a while to realize that I could really change things in myself and be completely different.
What led to that? Do you have was it a moment? How did you notice that shifted?
That it was working?
Yeah, for you.
Oh, it just with big things and little things, because when you do sessions with you, we do a pain cure list, which is basically a list of all our lovely traumas and stuff. And I just kind of went through them all and changed all of them. And I was like, oh, you can change anything, like anything. And I was doing it by myself, just from watching that module, just from listening to you and Kent teaching us how to do it and understanding how it worked. And I was so incredibly fascinated by it, and it was very empowering. And then when you get out of that victim mindset, then you can really be a little bit more objective about things and really feel empowered and know that you can change anything. I thought it was wild. It was like you feel like this really powerful sorceress almost.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then you notice the things around you start to change. You notice your relationships start to change. You notice the people that are close to you in your life, they start to change. And it's all just in response to your completely healed energy. It's wild.
It is wild.
It's wild.
And I think the interesting thing too is what the reality becomes is almost like it would have been fantasy to think of when you first came in. And then it becomes reality.
Yes.
But then it becomes reality in such a normal way that it almost doesn't seem miraculous anymore.
I'm right there with you on that. I remember when I first started in my manifesto, I wrote, I'm going to be living in a forest with my mini horses. I'm going to be a mind change practitioner that incorporates equine therapy into it. And that's all, I'm like right on the verge of all of that happening.
In days, this is happening, right?
And it feels so like, obviously, this is going to happen. When, a year and a half ago, it was a wild fantasy.
Yeah.
So
this is always an interesting thing, I think, because there's a lot of conversation in the trauma world about like bottom up and then top down kind of things.
Yeah.
And so would you kind of see yoga, like how did you get into yoga in the first place?
Pain. I was in physical pain. I had really bad back pain that was actually debilitating. This was in my early 20s. And at the time, I attributed it to the fact that I have scoliosis. I have a curvature in the spine. And so I was like, that's why I have it. Now I realize that it was emotional, because guess what? My spine is still curved, but I do not have any pain. So yoga got me out of pain. And I really didn't enjoy yoga, but I practiced. I got my little VHS tapes and did it at home. And I was like, this is awful. I hate this. It's so boring. It feels terrible in my body. But then I would be out of pain. And so I realized that I had to incorporate it into a daily practice. And ultimately, I learned to love yoga. And you can put your own twist on it and make it what you want. And then it's fun. But yeah, pain is a really, really strong motivator.
For what got you into it in the first place.
Yes.
And then it became something that you almost had to do to stay out of pain.
Totally.
And then this becomes in one sense, a bit of your world, your career.
My whole thing became yoga because I realized how, and it did have a really positive impact on my whole life, not just my physical body, but it changed just how I was and how I wanted to be in the world and how I wanted to treat myself. So it was really, really positive. And just seeing how positive it was for me, I felt it was the obvious step that I had to become a teacher and share it.
And that is a piece of it, right? The piece within your body, or even awareness that we have a body. For some people, that would have been for me.
Oh, yeah.
Awareness that I had.
As a teacher, you see it all the time. Straighten your knee. And people are like, there's no connection between the mind and the body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet, so you're very embodied.
Very connected, very embodied.
And then there's this other piece
Still
of it.
had this huge, huge weight on me.
Yeah. Would you have said at the time, if someone came to you and just said you're completely disconnected from your mind?
I think I would have been offended and defensive if somebody had said that to me. Because I would have been like, what are you talking about? I'm a yoga teacher. I do all these things.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't really know deep into yoga philosophy, but do you feel like there's a little bit of a body-centric or centricism in that? Like the mind isn't actually...
I think there can be, and that's how most people come to a yoga practice. I mean, yoga incorporates a lot of things, right? And it's that mind-body integration is a big part of it, but that's not how people enter into the practice. It's a very physical practice, and we think about getting more flexible. Most people are there to get out of pain or to, create balance with some other sort of physical sport that they're doing or something like that. It's very physical, and that's usually the realm that we enter it in, and a lot of people kind of stay in that realm. So yeah.
Okay, so then you do the sessions. This is my recollection of this. We did a couple sessions. It was great. I thought you were wonderful. But then I didn't really hear from you for a while.
You didn't know I was quietly doing all this stuff.
I had no idea.
I'm not a big talker about stuff.
Yeah, that you were you really dove in.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite parts about Mind Change. If I can talk about it sort of as if it's not, dissociate from it for a second.
If it's not your baby.
Right. Is that it does the goal is to put the power back in the hands of the people.
Yes.
And I remember, not everybody does it though.
Yeah.
But some people really do. And I remember you showing up on a mentoring call and within the student community and sharing, and me going,
did I share?
You said something that I was like, well, what is this? What is
for the last 8 months I've been doing this thing. Yeah.
Some way that you showed up, responded to something. I was like, wait a minute, she actually gets this. On that level, we really hope people get it.
Yeah.
Where it's become an embodied knowing. It's returning back to a knowing is what I kind of recognize.
It's taking off all the stuff that's in the way.
Yeah. And then I'm like, so Michelle, what's up? And what was that like for you, that kind of quiet journey of self-work? Because it can be a little bit intimidating, I think, for people.
It was really interesting. And I'm glad that you provide such a great community of students because, there was no one else in my life that really understood what I was doing and how I was changing so fast. Things were just changing so fast. And I just felt like I felt like a completely different person after the end of that first module 1. And, I don't know how to describe it other than I just felt like a completely different person. And I also had this sense of knowing and comfort that whatever came my way, I could handle.
That's so great.
Yeah. And then you start to use mind change with every little second of your life. You're using it always in the moment, and it just changes everything.
I remember you mentioning you feel like it's really changed relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, I think that might be something hard for people to fully understand.
Yes.
Within the world we work in, and we don't really realize
it's not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and sometimes it is them, but that doesn't mean that you can't change it by working on you.
Yes.
Because when you come from that truly healed place, the people around you, the world around you cannot stay the same.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's good. They really can't.
They cannot. They have to respond differently to you when you're different. And it's not, and you can always do the right thing and say the right thing and like verbally respond to someone in the right way, but you're not going to get that shift in them because it's coming from this place of like white knuckling it and like it's not genuine. You have to do the healing to see that change.
Yeah. I remember trying so many different habit forming things and
affirmations and the subliminals and like all the things. And it's like
all the things. And it really still felt like I was back from my acting days. It kind of felt like I was
fake.
Okay, get on the, okay, I'm positive and I'm happy. And I remember when it shifted to that feeling of like, it just was so natural, the joy, the patience. The patience I had with my kids, I would wondered at myself. I was like, who is this? That it just naturally came out. Where before, what would have naturally come out was a little more anger and impatience, even though I tried so hard to keep it down.
You keep it down. You're like, I'm not going to yell. I'm going to respond from love. And like, but you're like, that's just gone.
You're like, I'm going to do it different than my parents did it.
Totally.
And yet everything in you wants to say the same thing and do the same thing and be the same way. And when that shifts to the natural default is something different.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah. When even the tough stuff comes up, you're like, oh, this is interesting.
I love that. It's
I wonder where this is going to go.
Yeah. So then what does your future look like with all of this, do you think?
With mind change?
Yeah.
I would love to be a practitioner. That is the path that I'm on for sure.
Yeah. And you're doing amazing on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's not an easy...
No, it's not a weekend course where you get certified people.
Yeah.
It's not like that, which I think I really appreciate because so many, I don't even want to call this a healing modality. What do you call this?
Gosh, we have really struggled to figure that out.
Yeah.
It is like it's not just mind shift. It's not just a reframe. It isn't like...
None of it really speaks to it, but I mean modality for another person, but many of these different things, it's pretty easy to get certified. And I know you've had that experience of people wanting to get that mind change notch in their belt. It's not like that. You have to really be, I feel like it's like the biggest thing in my life. Like it takes a long time. You guys train the daylights out of people. And it's how it should be. Yeah. It takes a long time to learn.
Well, the access that we end up having when you understand, first of all, how programmable we are as humans, how programmed we are. When you understand the mechanisms of all of that, it's quite a powerful place that it could be. So to be able to enter that space with authenticity, with really integrity, because we've
unconditional positive regard for the people you work with.
Because we've done it.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
You have to have done it.
You have to have done it.
This is one of those things that's just not going to fly if you are coming from that unhealed place.
Yeah.
And you guys really require that self-work intensively.
It's been very helpful, I understand, for many people, but for you to have the community to work with, right? So other students. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what has that been like for you to work with other students?
Well, I mean, you couldn't get there because you couldn't get there if you didn't have that. It's been really amazing. And I've made friends with people that I probably would have never interacted with otherwise outside of Mind Change. And that's been really beautiful and fun. And yeah, it's been a great experience. You definitely need community and other people to bounce this stuff off of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you've had at this point a chance, as you have been in the training program, to work with other people. Mm-hmm. What's that been like?
Oh, it's amazing. It's so fun. I think it's the most interesting thing I've ever done in my life. It's so fascinating, and I'm really energized by it, where I thought that it would be, I thought that being a practitioner would be more draining, and it's not. It's actually very fun, and it can be very fun and lighthearted to work through some really difficult traumas for people. It's been incredible. Such a learning experience.
Yeah. That was the thing for me too. I was in something before that was a bit draining. The helping.
Yes.
And I felt like I carried a lot of other people's things, and it was heavier. Where
it's not talk therapy.
No.
Yeah.
No, and also because the goal is self-empowerment, right? Like you doing this, and as a practitioner, we just facilitate that process.
Yeah.
There is the ability to have curiosity, the ability to approach something that may be very hard or very difficult for somebody with curiosity that never has been done before.
Right.
And to be curious about something that maybe we've carried and put so much stuff on, or maybe we've talked to death.
Yeah.
To approach it from a different angle. I've watched it time and time and time again. Just someone light up about something that I never thought about it like that. I never made that connection before. And it's almost like unlocking the key to a door inside of somebody that you get to watch someone discover themselves.
It's thrilling.
It is.
It is thrilling. Like, and you get to see people change huge things in one single session, and they leave feeling completely different about something that they came in that was really draining them and heavy, and you get to see that. So I can't think of anything cooler.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Yeah.
How do you see the importance of the body piece of it though? Like what being someone who works through a sort of a somatic field and what would you say is important for somebody with that piece of it? The body part
that has the body part of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's everything. And that's one of the fantastic things about Mind Change is it's everything. It's body and it's mind and it's spirit as well. And really it's incomplete if you don't have all of those things and they're not all integrated. And most people are stuck in their head, but there are those people that are stuck in the body. I think I was probably I don't even know. I can't even remember. Was I more of a stuck in the body, more of a stuck in the head? I don't know. It was such a worrier before, but that's not really there anymore. But yeah, you have to have all of that. You got to have it.
So when you look back and you're like, I think I was doing depression. What does that seem like to you now?
I'm just giggling.
I know.
I'm
not something we normally giggle about, but we can giggle about it.
You can giggle about it. It just seems so foreign. It seems so foreign. And even when hardships come up and things come back in, I just have this sense of ease. Like I always feel like I'm within my window of tolerance, even in difficult moments, because I know it'll pass and I know I can go work on something and it can completely shift really quickly. And then when I shift myself, then the situation usually shifts.
Oh, how
just
about
gonna
that?
say, yeah.
Have you seen particular beliefs or patterns that came from childhood? Because even though like we're not talk therapy, we do a lot of stuff in childhood. It's a very different approach. And I feel like it's not one that necessarily looks for the blame. Like we don't really try to do blame at all in Mind Change. But there are resources in childhood. Did you recognize anything or notice anything, patterns, programs, beliefs that may have started in childhood?
I'm trying to think about the childhood. I've done so much childhood work, and it's like I really want to answer these questions because I know that the answers are there, but I can't remember because it's just not there anymore. I know that we did some work like parental stuff in our first session, and that completely changed my relationships in my family of origin in a really powerful way, and then the relationships with my children. But I'm thinking of patterns. When I'm thinking about patterns, I know that I had a program that I was running that worry is love. Like if you worry about someone, it means you love them. And I'm sure it started in childhood. I don't know where that came from, but that was a big one that I was doing, and it was manifesting, with my children in that regard, like constantly worrying about them, constantly fearful that something was going to happen to them, like always, always, always worried. And I think even though I was kind of keeping myself in check and not really putting that on them too much, the energy's still there. And that is very oppressive to kids. It's too much responsibility. They shouldn't have to feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so important because I would not have also considered myself a worrier.
Yeah.
I was like I'd let my kid, climb to that tallest tree.
Yeah.
But what was happening inside of me,
I was the same.
yeah, wouldn't say it, but what would be bubbling up, I think really affected both my children, but in really different ways.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I let my daughter ride horses and jump over big things, and, I let her do it, but I was sitting there watching, like grinding my teeth, and like my body's all tense. But I was like, I'm letting her do it, but that energy's still there, and it's not helpful to anyone.
I think we think that's normal. I bet there are people out there listening to that and being like,
they're like, you should worry that much.
That's what parents do.
Yeah.
That's what mothers do.
Yeah. You have to worry. You have to worry all the time.
Yeah.
Something might happen.
So for those people out there who really think there's no other way.
You can still check up on them.
Right. It's not that there isn't awareness or concern.
Mm-hmm.
I know what my answer would be. What would be your answer? What does it look like otherwise? So if we're not doing worry.
Trust. Yeah.
And what does that look like as you're watching your daughter fly over jumps on
it's exhilarating. I'm
horse.
so happy for her. Now I see like the joy on her face. She's always, I don't think she knows it, but she's always got a big smile on her face when she's doing it. And I see all of that, and all of that comes in instead of that worry and that fear.
Gosh, we were missing that before.
I know. There's so much that you miss out on.
Yeah, worry keeps you very focused on the danger.
And you're always catastrophizing. Is that a word? Catastrophize?
I think so. If it's not, let's make it one.
Okay.
We have all kinds of made up words in Mind Change.
Right? Totally.
Yeah, I feel the same. The way I was looking at my daughter at the top of a tree, rather than preparing for her to fall down, and what would she break, and what would it be like if she was paralyzed, and what would my life be like if she then died, and would I be able to handle it? Right? You do all those things. Right? Yeah, we do that. And I didn't know that.
That's white knuckling.
Yes, that is the white knuckling.
Because you got to let your kid climb a tree. We all know that.
But there's a lot of people who don't. Who don't let the kids climb the trees, and don't because of the danger, and they feel like it would be irresponsible, or they would be a bad parent. How irresponsible is it to let your child climb up to these dangerous things?
Yeah.
And what I missed, which I now don't miss, is like you said, that exhilaration. I got to watch her strong body.
Yep.
Her agility. I got to watch, like, there's no way she will fall because of the way I'd watched that she'd catch the next branch. And now, does that mean she didn't have the possibility or potential to fall?
Right.
But I really believed that as I saw her strong body, marveled at her agility, that if she were to fall, I'm like, if she falls and she breaks something, then that's gonna, like, she's so strong.
Yeah.
She's gonna heal that right up. That'll be a great learning experience for her. And even I shifted into all of those different thoughts. And I would see her beaming at me, and like there was a connection there that we didn't have when I was doing so much worry.
Yeah.
So yeah, that worry equals love one. That's a big one.
And then you pass that on to your kids. And then they're afraid to do things. They don't trust. They're worried. And they don't want to go out there and climb the tree. And then, how terrible would that be to have a kid that didn't want to climb a tree?
Well, think about when they stop wanting to climb trees.
Yeah.
And they become older teenagers.
Yeah.
And if for them worry is love, I wonder if they don't start creating behaviors that are worrisome.
So that they get that love.
So they get the love without even realizing it.
Oh, I just realized something about my child.
I'm like,
That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, with my wild child days, I was trying to get that love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that about myself too.
Oh, yeah.
When you have hands-off parents, which I had.
Gen X did.
Gen X, yep.
Yep.
Latchkey kids. You're trying to figure out subconsciously, would have never done this consciously, how do I get them to pay attention to me to see that I have needs that are going unmet?
Yeah.
Again, didn't have the languaging, couldn't have seen that. So you try all sorts of various things. And some of that wild child behavior, if that is the only way you can get them to respond, then you'll do what you can to get them to respond.
Yep.
And same thing though, then you've got those worry parents or those really restrictive parents, helicopter parents.
Yes. Neither one is good. And it's both that same sort of cycle.
Because it's what foundationally wires our children.
Yeah.
Some of the worry wart parents, you may end up with a child who feels incompetent and feels like they're not able to do anything and
they can't make any decisions. They don't have that confidence or trust. Yeah.
And they'll end up finding authority figures in their life constantly when they maybe need to be the authority in their own life.
Yeah.
They will keep putting authority figures in their life.
Yes.
People to control them, people to direct them, and they're not always the safest people to be around. Or you'll have the people who will rebel against that, will feel so constricted that they will blow.
Yeah.
Listen, this parenting thing, it's complicated.
It is. Yeah. It's no walk in the park.
It is no walk in the park.
Yeah.
But I will say healing so many of my childhood programming, recognizing it first, loving myself through it, healing it, releasing my parents from the blame, the shame, has really helped me see my kids in such a different light.
Totally.
I'm like safe to explore with them.
I really wish I found mind change earlier.
I know, me too.
Man, why couldn't you have just come up with this years ago?
I think I had to do
I had to do
the journey, go as low as I did. I don't think everyone has to do that.
Yeah.
But for me, that's what it took for me that was a program of the extremes. I ran an extreme program. Growing up in the home that I did, there was such an extreme thing. Like it didn't get attention unless it was extreme, good or bad.
Yeah, so the overachieving and the naughtiness, all of that.
Yeah, you take it to the extremes. Yeah. So I took my stuff to the extreme to finally get the attention that it needed. And I've loved moving out of the extreme.
Oh my gosh, it's so great.
Isn't it great?
You just get to chill.
Simple.
Yeah.
I love the simple.
Yeah.
Joy. I find
balance.
The most joy in the simplest things.
Totally. That is one of the things I notice with mind change is there's joy in like washing the dishes. I'm not like, I've got to go muck pony poop right now. It's like, I get to go muck, you get to do these things. And there is just that sense of joy in even the simplest things. There's no drudgery of life, which is what I felt like there was a lot of when I was dealing with that depression, the drudgery of things.
But we have to meet ourselves with curiosity first.
Yeah.
Once we meet ourselves with curiosity, it opens us up to be curious about every other thing. So the ponies, the dogs, people, even the people around us who we thought we knew and we had put in these boxes for so many years to compartmentalize, you get a lot more curious about, well, now I wonder why you're like that. I wonder,
and even people in your past that you maybe had like a negative experience with, and you left that experience going, they were a bad person. You do the work on it, and then all of a sudden, all the great things come forward, and then that's your memory of it.
Yeah.
It's so great. And why wouldn't we want that?
Sure.
Yeah. It doesn't do us any good to hold on to the bad stuff because there's good stuff in everything.
So what would you say to the people out there who are like, I don't know, I've tried this whole mind-body thing, this mindset, mindfulness.
Yeah.
I've done the yoga. I'm doing all the right things. Yeah. Why am I not?
Yeah, me too. I'd be like, yeah, you didn't do this. you got to try this because it is totally different. It's not like anything else that's out there that I've done. I feel like I've done a lot of the things, and they might make you feel a little better here and there, but this really profoundly changes whatever you want it to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked a little bit in the past. I think I've even talked about it on a podcast that so often these, like, so you start a yoga practice or you start a new way of eating or whatever, mindfulness or you meditate. And for a time, things shift.
Yeah.
And I really think that the biggest common denominator of that is that we're doing something for ourselves. And it's that little moment where that self inside that's like,
it gets to go, yay, I'm seen.
It's like you're seeing me, you're hearing me, you're listening.
Yeah.
But what we don't realize is that what it is that we're putting the power in the thing.
Yes.
And then us that thought we had the power for a second is like, wait, no, me.
Yeah.
And then we need more meditation.
The thing is always going to come back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's giving this the attention first, the attention first. And then the rest of it becomes like now how's your yoga practice?
Quiet. There's not, but so I think before, and this might be age too, but there was a little more rawr to it. And now it's just whatever it is in that day, in that moment, giving myself what I need and what I want. And sometimes it's, powerful, and sometimes it's relaxing, and sometimes it's all over the place. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's just that thing that has shifted in every aspect of my life, just infiltrates the yoga practice as well. Definitely a little mind-changey elements in my teaching now, in my newer classes. You can definitely see it in there. It's shifted it for sure.
And I remember when we got here, you're like, I do mind change with my ponies.
I do.
So you have minis.
I have mini horses. A herd of mini horses in the backyard.
Yes. And you've done some equine therapy too, right?
Yes, I am certified in equine-guided learning. So it's where you learn how to partner with horses in any kind of modality.
Why do you think that works the way it works?
With the horses? Well, I think with the horses, as you know, and I know you're just asking me this so I can explain because you already know, they really do mirror people in their environment, and that's to their benefit. They're prey animals, so they're very attuned to their environment, and they're very attuned to the people that come into their environment, and they can really sense your energy, and they feel your energy, and their energy shifts your energy. So in that way, they're very good co-regulators. So I find that sometimes when people come to this type of work, they might be dysregulated. The horses really help with that. And if you can regulate your nervous system a bit before you go into any kind of self-work, that is only going to be really helpful. And they also provide a mirror, so they can sometimes mirror what's going on with somebody internally. A lot of times you come in and you might see a calm exterior, but if something's going on inside, that will be mirrored in their behavior. So it's a good indicator to the practitioner with what's really going on with that client. And they're great pattern interrupters when it comes to mind change.
They are. They do it naturally.
They know when to step in, and they know when to chill out. And it's just really fascinating to watch what they do during a mind change session and how they come in and come out and do what needs to be done, and then provide and hold that space for the people just at the exact right moment. And I always feel like, oh, it's a fluke. That was really amazing, but it happens every time. So I don't think it's a fluke.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I love how we are still in amazement and wonder about the way that things always should have been and are. And it's just like, every day it's like a new learning.
They're showing you the shifts.
Yeah.
Even if somebody comes in and they're really dysregulated, they're dealing with a problem, you'll see that in their behavior. They'll be biting at each other, kicking at each other, maybe running around. And then, as you know, with mind change, you always close the session feeling really good because you're replacing that other thing with something very positive. And that is always reflected in the horse's behavior. You'll often see them come and even lie down next to the client, which is pretty magical for horses.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. It made me think about how, as humans, the majority of us are running around co-regulating and dysregulation.
Oh, yeah.
And that we
attune down.
Right. Where animals they hold their space. they're generally not going to allow for me to affect them in a way, like bring them.
Well, especially horses. They've got
Yes.
those big hearts. Even many horses have big hearts. So that's their really strong electromagnetic field. That's that organ that gives off the strongest field. And so that's what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Is that energy.
They hold their...
You acclimate to them.
Yes. And I wonder, like...
Especially in a herd.
Yeah, especially in a herd. I love watching them all together because they just do. They just are. There's no faking there.
Nope.
You can't do that with the horses. They just get it. They know. And I love when I'm in relationship with people who are doing the same. I've seen that shift in my family where there's a lot more authenticity, so that it's like okay for things to be there when they show up. If it's anger, or if it's something, you almost watch everyone go and observe. And like, okay, there's anger right there. And then we all sort of, okay, how am I going to regulate to that? Or if I'm going to, it's a really cool thing. It gives me a lot of hope for humanity.
Yes.
When even small little groups can do it.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah. You feel okay even in like the thick of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned this too, but working with people who maybe you wouldn't have, in the grand scheme of the way the world works, been able to sit and see eye to eye on. You may have thought that you may have noticed more of the differences.
Totally.
And yet when we get in and we really hold that person with the space we've learned to hold ourselves, people become fascinating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why the mind change with doing the self-healing first is so, so important, because it's when you are that healed energy, then the people can really feel that.
Yeah.
And you see those similarities.
Because we're not there to fix.
Exactly.
Because nobody's broken.
Nobody's broken.
And it's the beautiful thing to be like, okay, you're not broken. I know that. And you're doing this thing and you're creating this thing every time with success.
It's that fascinated curiosity of like, ooh, let's get into this.
Yeah. I love that. I love approaching that. And I've brought that a little bit more with my kids, with my husband, with my family members.
Yeah.
So that really changes things.
Yes.
And I know that that's been the case for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because nobody wants to feel like someone wants to fix them. That's not a good feeling. You need to go to therapy. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that.
No. Yeah. And nobody wants to hear, you need to do mind change either,
You don't. Yeah. Right? Even though, like, when things come up with my daughter, I'll be like, you can change that.
Yes.
And
oh my gosh, my kids.
And she'll be like, stop.
Yep. Yeah. No. I'm like, that's going to be your trigger.
I'm here if you need.
You can get into it later. There's a way to deal with that later.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. But, that's great. So moving forward, what would you like people to know? Like, if you could say your unique experience, if anyone out there is listening, let's say you were listening, even when that little triggery spot, before, if someone's still listening to this and hasn't been triggered yet, what would you want to say to that person?
I would say, well, if you were triggered, I would say get curious about that and just kind of soften into that. Yeah, because that's where it is, and have that compassion and curiosity for yourself. And, just do it. It really does. It's not like anything else. There's no talk therapy in this. It's none of those things. It's very self-empowering, and it gets you really out of that victim mindset that I didn't even realize I was in. I would have never been like, yes, I'm a victim of this or that. I never felt like that or identified with it, but coming out of it, I realized how powerful I was. Yeah.
How would you explain that? Because that can be one of those triggery language things, like, I was being a victim, but I can hear in you saying it, it's not the same way. Like, you can own, I was in a victim mentality without it being, I was victimized. And
yeah, I think I just attributing what was going on with me to things outside of me. That's what it was. That was my thing that I was doing. Yeah.
Like, you're the reason I'm acting
Yeah.
this
And
way.
it's very hard to shift out of that, because there can be, maybe there's an abusive person in your life, and that is very real and very legitimate. But you can't control other people, but you can change yourself, and therefore everything around you will change.
Yeah.
I can't say the same.
That's very difficult for people in those situations to hear.
And it can be very scary, because sometimes you don't want to let go of certain things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way that we both got into this relationship without anyone being to blame or no shame there. There's a way we get into these relationships, and it wouldn't work if we both weren't working a particular pattern.
Exactly.
And that's something that I've realized is shifting out of the pattern for myself.
Yeah.
It's not like I really even had to do much. Those relationships often
They either get better and like you connect in a different way, or they just fall by the wayside. But I think that the thought of doing that can be scary for some people. Like, a lot of people don't want to change. They're like, oh, my trauma is what made me funny. And I'm funny. And
you had that a little, right?
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still kind of funny, but like I'm not. I feel like before I was always on, like being funny all the time was like my thing, and it was definitely a defense thing. And I'm not as funny all the time, but I'm definitely a lot happier. But I think it was a thing that I did to keep real stuff at bay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, but I think if you had told me going in, like, I would be like, oh, I don't want to lose that. Or, the trauma is like maybe who I am or something. But I think that can be threatening to sometimes, when people don't want to let go of things that they believe made them who they are. Or this made me strong. It made me who I am. It made me know that I have to be careful in the world. And that can be hard too.
Yeah. Oh, that one gets me, because I don't think we fully understand how disempowering that languaging is.
Yeah.
What you're saying to, like, I would imagine you saying it to, like, your little self, like 4 or 5-year-old, like, the only way you're going to be strong, the only way you're going to be good
is to have these traumas.
Is to have to go through all these horrible things.
Yeah.
Like,
imagine your kid.
No. No.
They don't need to go through that to be strong. You don't need to have all that unhealed trauma in order to be strong.
It's already in you. And what if wonderful love, joy, peace could bring that out even better?
Yeah.
It makes me wonder how many, I've thought about this for actually quite a long time, how many comedians are stuck in this feeling like they have the least funny lives, and yet their humor,
the sad clown.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
And for them to think about healing, this is what secondary gains and secondary losses.
Secondary gains.
Is that if I were to heal, then I'd lose they may lose their entire livelihood.
Or so they think.
So they think, right.
Yeah.
But then what could they gain?
Or it could get so much better.
How much better could it get?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Michelle, thank you for sharing. I'm so excited to even watch. This is another thing I love about Mind Change, is that people come in and they make it their own. And they take it and they do their own thing with it. And it's like this beautiful iteration of it that I couldn't have done. Kent couldn't have done. It's like only you can do this part of it with it. Aww. And so I'm really excited and honored to watch your journey and your move into the forest. And
I move into the forest.
I know. It's so great.
Yeah.
And also just the ability that you uniquely have, having been so embodied, having understood the somatic piece of it, but to also have left you lacking, to some degree. Yeah. For anybody out there who is white knuckling it through their practice
doing
of
all the things,
for them to hear, like, actually, you can still do all the things.
With ease.
And it doesn't have to be that you do this to stay this way.
Yep.
It can be
icing on the cake.
The icing on the cake. The
icing
cherry.
on the vegan cake.
Yes. All of that. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being my teacher.
Aw. Thanks for being my teacher.
Oh my gosh. Totally.
All right. And thank all of you for joining us and for what each of you bring to the community, to the podcast. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing from you in the comments. We love hearing from you in your reviews. So please keep letting us know what you want us to talk about, what really hit you, what resonates with you, because we're doing this really for you guys and for me, because I love to sit down and have these conversations with these amazing people, but you're important to us, and so we want to hear from you. If this interests you, if you want to go deeper, if you really want to kind of jumpstart your entire journey, then you should join us on one of our retreats. Our retreats are probably the single most compact, intensive thing that you can do. And so we do have a couple of those retreats coming up. Just look on the website at mindchange.com and it's got all the details there, and reach out if you have any questions. But thanks again for joining us on the Mind Change podcast, where we are changing the world one mind at a time.